Thanks for joining me today. This is my Trail Wolf, and this is the Art of Soulful Living vlog. I'm always honored to have your attention for a few minutes. I pray I feed you well with our time together today. I want to share about some things that are very alive in my heart right now, and that's a couple of things. One is the principle of living as a magical act, which is very, very important to me, my life in general. And another is the principle of cultivating and maintaining joy in the course of the descent to soul. If you follow this channel, if you follow my work, then you saw that the last video I posted last week was the journey of Ishtar, the descent of Ishtar to the underworld, and I framed that in relation to our current times as a moment where we are collectively descending into an initiation into our greater soul. And this can be heavy work. There's some gravity to what we're dealing with now. So I have found for myself in the course of these months and previously in the course of some years that joy is really crucial to my well-being. And not just happiness, not just circumstantial, like, ooh, I got what I want, or ooh, pretty thing, or ooh, fun time, or whatever, but really deep, native joy is really important for me. It's a crucial fuel for moving through difficulty. And so we'll get into these two things right now. First, let's talk about living as a magical act. I contemplate this a lot because it's a phrase that came to me a few years ago: go forth and live as a magical act. And I have at various times, the way you do, I have at various times thought I had it. I got what it means. And I've realized that it is, of course, a manifold, like a koan. You know, it's a thing that just keeps unfolding and keeps revealing more and more meaning over the course of time. And right now I correlate it very closely to, Gandhi's famous quote, "Be the change you want to see in the world." And I think we could all stand to hold this close right now. Really hold this close, because we are walking into and walking through an extraordinary transformation, a time of extraordinary transformation, a time of extraordinary potency and intensity. And the collective pain body, the collective trauma body is very active right now. And you may know that one is not likely to behave from their highest ideals in a trauma loop. So that's something we have to really pay attention to in ourselves as we travel through this time, because we're sitting in the convergence of an extraordinary number of high intensity things, and a lot of them are crises. There's an economic crisis, there's a health crisis, there is the overview of our absolute imperilment as a species on a planet that we're killing with the way that we have developed our way of life. There is the Black Lives Matter movement. There are all kinds of things happening right now, and Black Lives Matter is not a crisis. That's a revolution, and that's amazing. But it's all high intensity. It's all very high intensity, and it all strikes to the heart of our survival at very fundamental levels. So our survival is in question from every direction, from the very, straightforward physical level to the very ideological level to the identity level. Our survival is very, very in question right now, and people are handling this roughly in a lot of ways. A lot of this situation is taking place on social media. Social media is a big part of our lives right now, and a lot of these conversations are being carried into the realm of social media, and this is something I talk about a lot. And they are being carried very indelicately, because social media gives rise to a very hasty way of communicating, and posts are fundamentally limited in scope. And the way that the conversations happen on social media, with like the post, and then whoever posts the thing goes off and does what they do and then comes back and checks for comments, and whoever comments does the same thing. It's a very fragmented way to have conversations that need a lot of cohesion to actually function well as the transformative catalysts that they have the potential to be. And I'm sure you've seen or heard of, like, this whole unfriending phenomenon. Like, if you believe such, you're out the door. If you believe so, you're out the door. If you don't agree with me, you're out the door. All these things. Like, people are being very hasty and very brash with each other. And they're being very brash with their opinions and their words. And this generates an energy. How this relates to living as a magical act, how this relates to being the change you want to see in the world, is that this whole mode of approaching the situation generates energies that we are fundamentally trying to change. It generates conflict. It generates severance. It generates opposition and adversarialism, where we need to generate communion. We need to generate peace. We need to foster relationship, understanding, coming closer together, not driving farther apart. So, to live as a magical act in this day and age means that we will pause in our haste. This is a very hasty civilization that we're living in right now. Very hasty. And we will pause long enough to actually consider the energy of what we're doing, the impact of what we're doing, the frequency of what we're doing. Are we generating with our behavior, with our words, with our deeds, with our thoughts, with our actions, with our approaches to things? Are we generating division? Are we generating opposition? Are we generating polarization? Are we generating more wounds? Or are we generating relationship, positive relationship? Are we generating healing? Are we generating peace? Are we generating coming home to each other? This, social media is hardly the only place this happens. It's just one of the fundamental, loud. It's just such a loud thing right now, and such an obvious thing, and such a sick, weird, twisted thing. And my invitation to us is to take this principle of living as a magical act. So here, do this. In the coming week, take this principle of living as a magical act and carry it with you. Recognize your life, your experience, as a holographic microcosm of the collective experience of life itself. And contemplate and behave through the lens of the principle that your behavior, your acts, your thoughts, your words, your deeds are the power of transformation for this moment, this collective moment that we're sitting inside of. Imagine how our world would be transformed if our conversations were fundamentally respectful, if our conversations were fundamentally open-hearted, if our process of making boundaries were not an act of violent severance, but an act of self-respecting containment of the field of energy. Imagine that. That would be amazing, right? So let's carry that forth into the field. Let's be that change that we're aspiring to. Let's walk into our conversations with an open heart, with a deep curiosity, with an unshakable respect. And that doesn't mean that conflict won't come, but it means that when conflict arises, we won't treat it like war unless it actually is war. And even then, we will head towards peace in whatever way we can, because that's the ultimate goal here. None of us want this world of conflict. Not anyone who's listening to me doesn't want the world of conflict and opposition and adversaries and division and hatred and separation and severance and all these other things. This is not what we want. We want a world of joy. We want a world of communion and kinship and comfort and pleasure and safety, real safety. The safety of everything being able to live according to its own nature, you know? And we can only create that if we truly embody those principles from the top to the bottom, from the inside to the outside, from the roots to the crown in our own lives. You know, it's not like you do it in some places, but over here you're, being verbally violent to people, but that's okay because over here you're working for peace. It's like, no, if you're working for peace, you live peacefully, which is not the same as passively. And I invite you to remember the Dalai Lama in this. The Dalai Lama is extraordinary in this. He's been dealing with the Chinese government that has destroyed his country, his people, his culture for years, and he's dealing with like high intensity conflict, but he's doing it peacefully. Remember that. Take that example as the possibility. It's like, I have this amazing friend, Sarah Cruz. She's a woman of color, and her grace with conversations around race is extraordinary. You know, we've had deep conversations about race, and we've said things, where we've hit a grinding point. And her approach is always to expand because she is completely rooted in love. She's unshakably rooted in love. And so her entire journey through the thing is rooted in love. Even when there's anger, even when there's pain, even when there's fear, she's always rooted in love. And so she's always navigating the conversation from the perspective of love and with an eye towards healing, because what she wants is freedom. And that's what I want. And I don't think I'm quite as refined as Sarah because I get angry. And I have to talk myself into putting my sword down sometimes. But it's happened over the course of my life. I have learned to put down my sword. I have learned that every interaction and every moment of my life, every thought process in my head, I spend a lot of time alone. So there's a lot of time that I'm not actually interacting with people. I'm interacting with nature, and nature's golden. But my mind is active all the time. And I'm a storyteller and a story weaver and a story maker. So my mind, being a storyteller and a warrior can make up some pretty full-on stories. And I realize that is, that's the foundation of my practice, is to manage how my mind works, how my mind behaves, how my mind responds to things, that at this point, when I see or experience negative energy, like genuinely negative energy, genuinely negative, like negate, like things that push life away. When I experience those things, at this point, I'm able to behold them differently. I'm able to perceive what I'm seeing differently and not just react to it. I'm able to navigate it with love. And it's the most important thing, because the whole crux of this moment, like, we are finally sitting in the possibility of really turning this world all the way from the death-dealing civilization to a life-affirming way of life for humanity and the earth. And nothing is more important than that at this point. That's important. Capital I, capital M, capital all the letters. That is the important thing right now. And the way that each of us carry it, the way that we can live as a magical act inside of this moment, is to live rooted in love and expressing in love, even when we are making hard boundaries, even when we are calling people out, even when we are drawing a line with something. We do it from the place that's rooted in love and is not seeking to generate wounds or garner cheap power, but is seeking to create integrity in the collective experience so that we can live love together. So that's thing one, living as a magical act. And thing two is joy. Joy has become so important to me. And it wasn't. Like I said, for ages, I was a warrior. And I'm still a warrior. But like for ages, I was primarily a warrior. I was fighting. I was angry. I was fierce all the time. I was the reckoning all the time. And it was, how I felt powerful in a world that overwhelms and scares me in a lot of ways and hurts me in a lot of ways. And a few years, what was it, the year before last now, I was preparing for a ceremony. I work with this one particular medicine. It's the most powerful medicine I've ever experienced. And I was preparing for a ceremony, and I hadn't slept the night before. I have frequently experienced sleeping problems because I had a sleeping disorder for a long time, but that night I didn't sleep at all. It wasn't like I went to sleep and woke up. It was like I didn't sleep at all, in that way that spirit will sometimes tenderize you when you're getting ready to, go to the altar. She, like the goddess, reached in and fucking tenderized me and took that night of sleep all the way away. And then in the morning, before the ceremony, I was on the phone with my closest friend, Siobhan, who's an incredible wise woman. And we were talking about my intention for the ceremony, and I was talking about one thing over here. And I don't remember exactly how the conversation got to this place, but it steered into this place where I said, I need joy, or I'm not going to make it. I need joy, or I can't do this life anymore. I can't feel this way anymore. I can't live through anger, and I need joy. I need joy, or I'm gonna die. And I broke down weeping, and I just wept and wept and wept for so long on the phone. And Siobhan's just like pure grace, And she said, "Well, it sounds like that is the actual bone deep soul need to carry into the ceremony then." And I was like, yeah, it is joy. That's what I need. And I went into that ceremony. I cracked open the egg of joy in my heart that I didn't know was there. And it was the most extraordinary experience I've ever had. And I was blessed to walk in that joy for the next 3.5 or 4 months straight. It's something I had never experienced before. And then one day it just wasn't there. One day I just woke up and I felt the old like hard anger, the pain, the fear, the frustration, and I was really freaked out. But when I recovered from the kind of shock of the sudden withdrawal of that thing that I had been enjoying for a while, I realized that in the course of those months, my experience of joy was not circumstantial. And this is where I make the distinction between joy and happiness. For myself, I perceive of happiness as something circumstantial. Like, ooh, I got some money, I'm happy. Ooh, I got a new pair of pants, I'm happy. Ooh, I got a new lover, I'm happy. Ooh, I found ooh, some stimulus made me feel good and I'm happy. But it's fleeting and it's kind of grasping because of that fleeting. It's always trying to get another stimulus in so it can come up again. But joy, I recognized in those months, was an inherent part of my being. And it's deeper. For me, happiness is a spirit thing. It's up and bright and out and all these things. But joy has deep roots, and it's just like a pleasure. Like a deep, deep pleasure and a deep radiance. A deep radiance. And so I began at that point to meditate, to bring it into my meditations, this principle of joy. And in my meditations, and especially meditations in a time when I was feeling particularly, I would go seeking the joy within me. And I have found that it lives literally in the middle of my heart. The center of my heart is joy. It's awesome. And I wonder, I bet, I think, I hope, I'm pretty sure that that's true for everyone. And so I offer that to you, along with taking this principle of living as a magical act into the course of your week and letting that guide the unfolding of your behavior. I offer you this as well. Find the inborn joy that is innate to your being. I do it through meditation. I also do it through dance and time with my kitten and time in nature and time in water and baths. I love hot water. But especially when you're feeling some kind of pain or fear or sorrow or grief or something like that, when you've given that particular feeling it's a space to live and breathe in you and have its moment of expression, find your inborn joy, the joy that you were made with, the joy that is the center of your heart. Find that inborn joy and coax it to life. Coax it to life. Because no matter how difficult the experience of living gets, that joy is a part of us. It lives inside of us. It's our birthright, and it's a native component of our being. We don't have to wait for something to come along and stimulate it. We can bring it to life inside of ourselves. It just takes a little practice. And that is a practice that is very worthwhile. And I'm a very intense, I'm a very intense person. And when I feel things, I feel them deeply. And when I'm when I'm struggling, I mean, I'm struggling now. There's so many circumstances in my life that are out of whack, and so little clarity about how to rectify that. And so now is a time when I am very, very frequently rooting down into my heart and just opening that egg again, like opening that container and letting that joy pour out through me, so that when I'm in the midst of a difficult conversation, when I'm in the midst of a difficult emotional state, when I'm, trapped behind a slow driver, when I'm on my way somewhere and I'm late, when I'm witnessing something that upsets me, when I'm whatever, when I'm feeling like overwhelmed or afraid or sad or angry or whatever, I reach down into, for me it's a crystal egg, and I open it. And I let that light pour out. And it literally, the more that I do it, the softer I get. And the softer I get, the more open my life gets. Not circumstantially necessarily, but like I see more. I see more. I can receive more. I can navigate more. I can relate with more compassion. So they live together. This and living as a magical act lives together. Because right now we're all under a lot of duress. Regardless of, what shape your particular slice of the duress takes, we're all under a lot of duress. So we have to have resource for the work of living as a magical act, for the work of being the change we want to see in the world. We have to have resource. And for me, one of the most powerful resources is that the presence of that inborn joy. So I offer that to you as a gift for your week. Take that with you and experiment with it. When you feel your blood starting to boil because you just read something, or you just heard something, or you just saw something, let that feeling have its moment, and then open that crystal egg and let that light of joy flow through you, and then respond. And then respond. Try it. See what happens. That's all I have to say today. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Maitreya Wolf, and this is the Art of Soulful Living vlog. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notifications if you want to know when new things come out. Share it if you like. Leave a comment if you want to hear about anything in particular. If you want to hear my thoughts or my take on anything, go ahead and ask a question in the comments. And the next frame will be all my contact information. Many blessings to you, my friends. Much love. Bye.